Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. We're going to be talking about a couple of things today. But I want to start out just saying what an amazing 4th of July weekend, Independence Day weekend we had. And it was kicked off on July 1, on Saturday, July 1, by President Trump having a rally at Pickens, South Carolina, a town of about 30,000 that had 50,000 people in it for the Donald Trump for Donald Trump's rally, July, Independence Day rally, kicking it off in South Carolina, the state that he won the Republican nomination when he won South Carolina. I think most people look back in the primary of 2016 and say South Carolina was the key state that really made it so Donald Trump became president of the United States. And so just as Joe Biden looks at South Carolina with fondness because South Carolina delivered Joe Biden the Democrat nomination, similarly, Donald Trump looks at South Carolina and says, this is where my presidential race was legitimized, and it's where there was no stopping him after he won South Carolina. So I wanted to go back to the speech. 50,000 people. Donald Trump is the people's president. Imagine any other modern politician getting 50,000 people to show up on a very hot, very humid day. Joe Biden, can't, if he shows up, he has to, they socially distance still just to make certain nobody can notice. There's only 6 people who showed up to see him. So it's a pretty big difference, but I want you to just take a look at this. You can thumb it quickly.
We need our independence back, to be honest with you. Nearly 2.5 centuries ago, brave American patriots risked their lives for the majestic cause of freedom. Their names entered history as heroes and legends. They are indeed legends. The Espionage Act has been used to go after traitors and spies.
Now, this is a kind of a hodgepodge from AP. I'm going to let it go. It's only a minute and 53 seconds total. But just recognize this is a hodgepodge to give you a sense of the speech. I wanted you to see it because there's some things that I want to talk about related to this speech and Donald Trump moving forward. But so let's just go back to it.
It has nothing to do with a former president legally keeping documents. As a president, the law that applies to this case is not the Espionage Act, this vicious, never used before, it's only been used on me over boxes that I'm allowed to have. We're up 61 points on everybody, 61. That's a lot. We appointed nearly 300 federal judges and 3 great Supreme Court justices. And this week, those justices ruled to move our country forward with a merit-based system of education. How big is that? Isn't that big? Isn't that great? And then yesterday, the Supreme Court also ruled that President Biden is not allowed to wipe out hundreds and hundreds of billions, probably trillions of dollars in student loan debt, which would have been very unfair to the millions and millions of people who have paid their debt through hard work and diligence. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you to South Carolina. Thank you very much, Pickens.
Well, there you go. It's Donald Trump is definitely his own guy. And I have to say, it is one of the great things about what Donald Trump does and how he kind of operates is he's legit. I mean, this is how he really feels. You don't have to wonder if he's kind of making it up. He's authentic, and sometimes it's goofy, but you know what? It's always heartfelt. And so what you saw there was just a sort of a smattering of different things that the president talked about. some of the things he talked about, though, he did talk about trade. He talked about the importance of trade and jobs in America. He talked about making our streets safe. He talked about the Ukraine Russia war and how the objective isn't to sit there and say, oh, we're going to bring one side to their knees. The objective is to get the war over and to end it, because people are dying on both sides for really no good reason. And so he's got a position on that quite honestly is a lot more, I think, American than the interventionist position that Joe Biden's been pushing. Of course, not many of us spent 5, 6, 7, some reporters mean 13 trips to Ukraine when he was vice president. Went to Ukraine as one of his last acts of vice president, last week of his vice presidency. Joe Biden in January of 2017, right before the Trump inauguration, made a trip to Ukraine. Why? Why would he be making a trip to Ukraine? Well, I guess he had some loose ends to tie up. We know what those loose ends are. He's got a pretty darn good idea. But the fact of the matter is, of all the places that the vice president was going and doing, with a week left in the presidency, the Barack Obama presidency, Joe Biden had to make a quick trip out to Ukraine just to make sure everything was buttoned up. And 3 years later, we ended up with an impeachment coming straight out of Ukraine by the very actors who Joe Biden worked with in the State Department and the National Security Council, who were driving Ukraine policy. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting tie-ins here. But all in all, I just wanted to show you this because the fact of the matter is, we sit there and we get so wrapped up in politics and Fox News or OAN or Newsmax or going Daily Torch. Sometimes we forget that politics is about people. It's really about the American people and the consent of the governed. And you may have followed a story where in the U.S. Capitol, a group from South Carolina, a children's choir from South Carolina, was denied the ability to they were going to sing in the Capitol, and they got shut down by the Capitol Police. And so Donald Trump, to end his rally, brought this children's choir in to sing the Star Spangled Banner. And so I wanted to share that with you before I go over to the chat. Taking a little bit longer to get on the stage, but they're getting on. We're getting there.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all around but we watched, us so gallantly streaming. And the robbers raving, the bombs bursting in, proved through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free?
Yeah, that's you know, modern politicians think that it's schmaltzy to have kids get up and sing the Star Spangled Banner. No, that's Americana. That's what's supposed to happen. That's what, this country is not just a bunch of intellectual thoughts. There's emotion. There's history. There's uh, shared struggles, shared fights, and it's and you know Joe Biden could have invited them to the White House and said, I really, I understand that there are rules of the Capitol, but why don't you come to the White House and sing the Star Spangled Banner for us on July 4th? But that wasn't part of their agenda. Donald Trump said, if you can't, I'm going to allow. I want the people to hear your voices. I want people to hear the Star Spangled Banner, our national anthem, and to be able to participate in the celebration of our nation's independence. And so it's just a difference. It's a difference of understanding not just the intellectual, but the emotional tie, the patriotic feeling that exists, which unfortunately many in the DC area you get it stamped out of you because it becomes, you're so busy in the sausage factory, you forget sometimes what's exactly at stake and why the sausage is being made in the first place. And so it just is a good reminder to see a bunch of kids singing the Star Spangled Banner and just celebrating our nation's independence. I'm going to take a couple of questions. I knew it when Wicked Felina. I knew when Trump got on camera against Obama shortly after Barack Obama got into office that DJD was the only man that with strength, star power, and momentum to defeat the fundamentally transformation of America. Yeah, I'll share with you my experience. I had met Donald Trump before. I was an NRA lobbyist in New Jersey in the early 90s, and Donald Trump was a businessman. He was trying to get some stuff done in Atlantic City. And so he was up at the state capitol in Trenton the same time I was at the state capitol in Trenton. And I had the New York Times chasing after me one direction and another reporter from the New York Times chasing after him in a different direction. We kind of bumped into each other and met there. It was the first time I met him. And then, but I didn't meet him again until it was Iowa caucus. It was campaigning for the Iowa caucus. And Americans for Limited Government had already asked him, and he joined us in fighting against fast-tracking the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But I talked to Hope Hicks, and I'd talked to Corey Lewandowski and to Sam Nunberg at the time. And that's who I was dealing with. I didn't deal directly with Donald Trump, but he knew who we were, and we knew who he was, obviously. And so I got to sit down with him as a pre-meeting before basically a standard get-together in Iowa, where about 8 different Republican presidential candidates came through and made presentations. I was making a presentation on stopping fast-tracking the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was what my role was in it. And so I got a chance to sit down and talk to him, and I was struck by something that was pretty incredible. It wasn't on my issue, but there are people who were talking to him about some pretty complicated things that were going on around the world, dealing with a lot of issues in the Middle East, and it was a pretty in-depth conversation. And about 3 to 4 minutes into them describing it, he just stopped him. He said, "Okay, so you mean this, this, and this," and I know the person wanted to go on for 20 minutes explaining it all to him. The fact is, he cut to the heart of what was being said with his points, like a CEO does. A CEO, they get it, they focus on it. Once they understand it, they then can come. They say, "So what do we want to do about it?" And so he had that fine-tuned brain that could cut to the heart of a really complicated matter pretty rapidly, and get right to the point. Second thing, he walked into the Iowa's caucus meeting, and a number of people just came up to him and said, and brought their children up and said, "Oh, I just want to make sure my child got to meet you." And it was different than every other presidential candidate. It was partially because he had celebrity, but it's also partially because he has it. Whatever it is, he has it. People are naturally, he has a charisma about him that people naturally follow. And it's a charisma that Ronald Reagan had. Quite honestly, it's a charisma that Barack Obama had. It's a charisma that Joe Biden will never have. But few of us have this. And he had it. He had the it factor, whatever that is. And people naturally wanted to crowd around him. They wanted to get a piece of him. They wanted, they wanted to be seen by him. They wanted to be near him. None of the other candidates, many of whom had a lot more of a public record and were dynamic and qualified. None of them had the same thing. And you see that in politics every once in a while. Somebody who has the it factor and versus somebody who has the resume but doesn't have the it factor. And that's kind of Donald Trump against Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush had the resume. Donald Trump had A, the intellect, B, the right policy positions, and C, the it factor where people listened to him and said, yes, that's somebody who I will follow into battle. So let's see what else we have. Missy Robinson, Donna Fenwick, what color are you? It's hard to tell with your childish fake profile. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's I don't care what color she is. Let's see here. Michael Lazuski. All races fought for freedom. Democrats, what you lie in creating another narrative to disgrace the meaning of our celebration of this greatness and defeat it for freedom in America. That speaks for itself in their tyranny and destruction. Michael, I can't help but remember that what you say is exactly true in terms of the American Revolution was people of all classes, all colors, fighting for an idea that matters, and the fact that the Democrats continue to want to separate us by race, separate us by religion, and create hyphenated Americans everywhere they can find, because they know where there's a hyphen, it's actually a minus sign. And that minus sign is that puts some other ethnicity ahead of your American heritage. And the American heritage is the one that matters. I mean, everybody can be proud of, be a proud Italian or proud Irishman or proud whatever. But ultimately, it's the American part that binds us. It's the American part that brings us together. It's the American part and the ability to make choices, for better or worse, make choices and live with those choices. And sometimes do very well and sometimes suffer defeat. But not having a government getting in the way of those choices. So you can fail. You can get up on your bicycle and you can start pedaling away and you can fall over and you can skin your knee. And you can get back up, you can ride that bike again, you can skin your knee again. And finally you can get back up and you can ride that bike and suddenly you don't fall over anymore. And then you can say, I'm going to go ride over some hills, I'm going to ride over some bumps. And you get knocked off your bike and you skin your elbows. And you get up and you keep doing it until you're really good bike rider, because it's something you love doing. That's America. That's what we're supposed to do. That's who we are. And that's why we're the envy of the world. Because we're one country where the government is not supposed to get in the way of us skinning our knee, getting back up and pedaling on our way. Some want to change that. That's part of the battle for the soul of America we keep talking about. But yeah, this is I'm just always so impressed when I see President Trump at these rallies. And the fact is, all I can think, and when I saw the 50,000 people in Pickens, South Carolina, and Pickens is a small town. It's northeast of, or maybe directly west, I'm sorry, of Greenville. And it's out in a real rural area. Fact of the matter is, Donald Trump's not afraid to go to America. He's not afraid to go to the places around America that aren't within 15 minutes of a Marriott. And when he goes there, tens of thousands, 50 in this case 50,000, show up and say, "We love America," and have a festival about loving America and looking forward to a hopeful American future. I just keep thinking about that as we come out of 4th of July and the kind of the high of 4th of July, about the hopeful American future that those people gathered around to celebrate. God bless America. Thank you for tuning in, and we will be back tomorrow.